and welcome again on day 6, video 6 in the series War on Depression. And we call this one Deep Regression into Your Past. In our previous video, I spoke about how it is possible to go from IPS, the inner peace state, to a state of stress. Stress in these videos is a collective name for all types of behavior or states of being deviating from the IPS, the inner peace state. According to psychiatry.org, depression symptoms can vary from mild to severe and can include feeling sad or having a depressed mood, a loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, change in appetite, weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, increase in purposeless physical activity or slowed movement or speech, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating or making decisions, or having thoughts of death and suicide. And they write much more about this subject. You can look it up yourself if you like. For now, I would like to limit myself to these symptoms. Again, following my theory in the previous video, these symptoms are the behavior or state of being we depicted contrary to our IPS or inner peace state. This means that life has triggered you out of this IPS somewhere down the line in your life. And it may have been events, accidents, incidents, assaults, memories, objects, or even music. A trigger can be anything, but they all have one thing in common. They trigger a memory of something from your past, good or bad. Good triggers bring you joy, bad triggers bring you sadness or worse.
I'm always angry.
And you have been triggered, and this trigger forced you to leave your IPS, and it all happened very quickly, leading to some kind of behavior as we discussed in the previous video. Just let's consider the symptoms of depression or grief, as we mentioned at the beginning of this video, as behavior or a state of being because of being repeatedly triggered by the same old trigger. Triggers confront you with something from your past, even if you don't know what has been triggered yet. But just suppose this triggering happened so often that your response became structural behavior or a state of being of mind. Why? Let me explain. Immediately when we are triggered by something from our past, a thought pops up like in the example of the dog in the previous video. And because this trigger triggers something negative from your past, the thought will also not be positive, and it may, for instance, warn you for danger. And you have a particular talent, for instance, like painting. And you really like to paint, but you keep it to yourself. Why? Because you are afraid someone may not like your work and it will criticize it when you show them. Now imagine one of your friends secretly photographed one of your hidden art gems. And this friend puts it on Instagram. And you found out immediately. And in this case, the trigger is you noticing your hidden artwork out there in the open for anyone to see it and judge it. Can you imagine the first thought popping up? It might be something like, oh bloody hell, I'm being exposed. Can you imagine what you feel instantly when this thought pops up? Anger, sadness, panic, anxiety, betrayed? Can you imagine your following behavior? Will you be angry at this friend and fight him or her? Will you run away, go out of town, or shut down Instagram for a while? Or will you just sit there in apathy, stunned by this action of a friend and feeling misunderstood in your very specific desire to keep your art hidden? What would you do? Or what would you do not? Whatever you do or do not, if you look carefully at your past, you will find out that this kind of trigger has happened before. Like people not listening to or taking your needs seriously and overruling your desires and needs. If you look at your personal triggers in your life and look really carefully, you will find out that the underlying theme of the trigger has already happened very often in your life. A trigger that makes you think you are not good enough, followed by the connected feelings and emotions and following the adapted behavior or survival strategy. Or triggering the thought you have to please everyone to be liked. Imagine the connected feeling and behavior to this. And let's now imagine that one of the symptoms of depression, feeling sad and depressed, is a behavior or state of being resulting from repeating triggers in your life. For instance, in the past, you have been triggered many times by other people telling you that you have let them down one way or the other. Previously, a thought popped up in your mind connected to being a disappointment, or at least your thought told you that you were a disappointment. And you have had many experiences with this thought of being a disappointment to others. And this thought made you feel bad because nobody likes to be a disappointment to others. Because you don't want to feel this bad feeling of stress or disappointing others, you first apply the behavior of trying to please other people. And you hope that this pleasing would lead to more approval from others or appreciation. And you tried very hard to please them even more, all to keep them satisfied and happy with you. And sometimes it worked for a moment and you felt appreciation. But reviewing these results over a longer period, you found out that you had to do or be more and more and more to keep them satisfied with you, or it didn't even work anymore and they were still disappointed. Or your pleasing cost so much time and energy that it wore you out, so in the end you ended disappointed yourself. If we try something very hard for a very long time, hoping it will bring us something positive and in the end it doesn't, we give up trying. We stop trying to do good to the other person, since whatever we hope to receive back disappointed us. So we give up trying and ended up first in anger, then in sadness, then in feeling lonely because we felt misunderstood in our good intentions, then in severe disappointment, followed by despair, not knowing what to do more, since our adopted strategy does not bring us what we need so much, for instance appreciation, ending up in deep grief, depression, loss of energy, apathy, loss of interest or pleasure, and all other forms of stress we find back in the symptoms of depression, grief, or low moods. When we are triggered and drawn away from our inner peace state, our IPS, we are reminded of something from our past experiences. This sets in motion a thought that we have connected to similar events from the past. This thought arouses a feeling or emotions, and when it's a negative feeling or emotion, we apply a form of behavior that we have programmed into our mind as the only solution that we know as a response to these feelings. For instance, we take more responsibility, we try to be perfect, we start pleasing, etc. When triggered into negative feelings and emotions, we can distinguish 3 layers of emotions. And the most common way to react is with anger and fight off the threat. If we look a bit more carefully at the trigger situation and find out that this relates to our past, we can move a bit deeper into the layer of sadness. Yes, we apply anger, but we are mainly very sad to be confronted with the other person's disappointment again. If we move down another layer of emotions, we will find out that underneath anger and sadness exists a layer of loneliness. Loneliness by feeling misunderstood by your surroundings. You try so hard to do your best. You try so hard to satisfy them, to get some kind of appreciation or even love. And no matter what you do, it never leads to satisfaction. Theirs, yours, or both. After this video, I would like to ask you to reflect upon this video sometime. Look at what triggers you into anger, sadness, or loneliness in your life. And can you discover a pattern that may even go back all the way to your childhood? The same kind of triggers, thoughts, feelings, and behavior that you have applied to get rid of it, ending up repeatedly in frustration, disappointment, despair, depression, and in the end, giving up and falling back into apathy, fatigueness, numbness, eating to fill up the pain gap, or depriving yourself of food to feel the pain so you at least feel alive somehow. Look at any symptom of depression that you recognize from the beginning of this video and ask yourself the question, may this be the result of trying so hard to feel loved by your environment, ending up giving up? Giving up because you failed and withdrawing yourself from an energetic and enthusiastic way of living. If so, I have good news for you. Something can be done about this, and I will tell you all my secrets for free in my next videos. Stay tuned. Thank you.